Oh, yeah, we're back with the fighting.
Back with the fighting, yeah. We haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah. Well, these guys kind of invented their own style, so.
Was Crow Cop the last one we did?
I think so.
Nice.
Yeah, not bad one on that.
Back into it.
And we're back at the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Quinn, with my co-host, Dominic DiTolla. And we're just two comics who love sports, talking sports. And we're here talking about the Gracie family.
The Gracie family, who not only built Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, basically built an empire that created UFC.
Well, I was going to say they really were they laid the groundwork for what everybody really loves about MMA now.
They're like the Godfathers.
Oh, man. And in Brazil, they really were.
No, seriously. I mean, and what better place than Brazil for anything interesting and fun to take place?
Well, something I find seriously interesting about Brazil is they have, and in this era, they had people going over and showing them different things, and they would take it and really make it their own.
What's interesting about Brazil, I've always found, it's like the USA of South America as far as being a huge melting pot for different people and different cultures and different sports to kind of take hold. Because much like the United States, it's a vast landmass filled with, I think Brazil is the country behind the United States in terms of world population. The United States is like 4th or 5th. Brazil's right behind them.
Yeah.
And you have all these people in this huge landmass of all sorts of different people and different cultures and different ethnicities and stuff, that you kind of have this almost platform for different things to not only take hold, but also different things to be created and made their own.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I feel like the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu really exploded, because you could see that it was from foundations of Japanese judo, but it was absolutely Brazilian.
Yeah, they saw something that they liked and said, let's make it Brazilian.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you want to get into it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to mess up some dudes' names here at the
We always
outset.
mess up dudes' names at the Sports Experience, not because we want to.
No, I found this actually a little bit interesting. The Gracies actually were Scottish descent.
Yeah.
And they traveled to, I believe, Rio de Janeiro in 1890 or something like that, and established themselves. They were actually a pretty wealthy family.
Yeah.
And later, so I believe it was 1917.
Correct.
This Japanese guy came, and it was Count Misuyo Maeda, and we might even do an episode on him because he was documented as one of the
1916. That's what I found.
Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's documented as one of like the first mixed martial artists. So if he saw another martial art that he thought he could incorporate, he would. So he showed up and put on all these demonstrations and really traveled around Brazil for like 3 years.
Yeah, he was at the American Circus in Belém. That's what I had found, and he kind of caught the Gracie's eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
With this unique style of
Fighting.
wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah. That nobody had ever seen before. And Carlos, who was Gustavo Gracie, who was living in Brazil at the time, his oldest son, saw it and was like, hey, that's pretty fucking cool.
Well, the demonstrations had to have been really mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah. Like anything like that, you've never seen before in 1916.
Exactly.
Because Japan's a very insular country. Like, not a lot of stuff is being shown. But, like, you know, you're coming over there with this, and you're just probably lighting everybody's minds on fire.
And that's what I bet when we see Carlos Sr., he really takes to it right away. And they say that it was like almost like, because we're talking about judo at this point.
Yeah.
And they say that like even like right away they were like understanding it like they had been doing it for years.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So that's where the whole family starts to kind of get involved in it.
I can't imagine, though, being in that crowd at that time, just like eating a bag of peanuts and being like, what the fuck was that? That is legit.
Seriously, because he's like, I'll throw anybody that steps up, and it's just so simple for him.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just like, this is an exhibition. This is just like for fun. This makes no sense.
Yes.
But my God, what did I just watch? I want to see more of this.
So Carlos's brother, Elo.
Yeah, Elio, with Osvaldo and Gastal Jr. are all into it.
Well, you've got to talk about, you say his name. Elio. Elio is smaller than everybody else.
Yeah.
And this is
not
where
as buff or robust or anything of that nature.
And they told him that judo's not for him.
Yeah.
And this is what I read is where they really started to perfect their own style. Was they wanted their little brother to be involved in this, but it was obvious that his strength was never going to be what theirs was. So then they started to use what would be like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, it was based more on leverage than anything else.
Using the other opponent's leverage and getting them off balance and that kind of shit.
Yeah, because, no matter how small you are, it's just basic physics. And when they perfected this, they're like, oh, let's take this awesome form and make it our own.
And that's the thing that I find so interesting about this is these four brothers probably wrestled each other for decades before
any competitiveness or anything. Yeah,
that's what
each other's asses.
That's what I love about, and they literally, that's how it's made, was these brothers were just like, especially Carlos. That's the thing that kind of gets back into it is they have these families that then in the, we see in the UFC era kind of like come to light, but these four guys literally are wrestling each other and figuring this out. And that's it. Like there's not really another family.
They're almost like four dudes who are mad scientists.
Yes.
They're figuring out what works, what doesn't, and they're doing it all on each other. You know what I mean? It's just like
all the experimentation is done on each other.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like you're 9 years old in the basement again and your brother's talking shit and you've had enough. Yeah. So, it's pretty incredible. I mean, their story as far as just like, oh, I saw this once at a circus. Let's make this better.
Yes. Yes. And they make it their own, and they make it such a staple of what, we think of when we think of Brazilian, I guess, sport.
Yeah. And they develop their own system behind it as far as, teaching it to everybody.
So then we see it kind of break off into two subsects. And I found this video that was really interesting, and it talked about Carlos's one son, Carlos Jr., and Elio's 9 sons who all have R names, and where the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of splits.
Yeah.
So they all, and this is just kind of like from a casual observer, they would never notice this, but this is like the inside baseball of it. Is Carlos Jr. trains and has schools all over the world. Like if you see a Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's probably his because he has them everywhere.
He has like a competitive monopoly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he trains them for sport. So he trains them for like points and like Jiu-Jitsu that would be like an Olympic Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
The other family member, they literally have it in their mantra or whatever you want to say is that this isn't for sport. This is a self-defense art.
Dear God, it's like a Mr. Miyagi versus Cobra Kai thing, and I love it.
It is so ridiculous. And that's the thing is they don't like hate each other or like there's not like controversy between them. But if you're in this other camp of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, shit isn't off limits. Like you can throw guys, like that's the point.
Sweep the leg.
And that's why we see these R-named guys, Hoyce, fucking Hickson, these guys who are just dominant because it's almost in this is where I feel like it's kind of we're getting to is like this no holds barred fighting blood sport events start to emerge.
I just want to start chanting Kumite over and over again until I pass out.
Well, these guys were made for the blood sport. That's why it was, and I feel like they've been their whole fucking family's been training for like 60 years for this.
They were based on Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. No, they weren't.
No, they weren't. But
so.
Yes, they would be the guy that shows up and there's like, who the fuck are they? And they're just dominating everybody.
Kumite, Kumite, Kumite.
I might even watch that tonight. It's such a silly ass movie.
Hey everybody, just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
But this
Forrest Whitaker. No,
this is what I find so interesting, and I can't find the name of it, but for a while there was this Brazilian no hold bards like tourney like in Bloodsport.
Yeah.
And the Gracies dominated it so much that they would literally like take turns like, oh, you going to go this year? All right, Hickson's going to go this year and he's going to dominate.
Oh,
and like
man.
that's how fucking good they were.
Oh,
so
my wife's being a bitch. Can you take over for me?
Exactly. So I just want to say this because not only are they no holds barred champions, but like Roger, one of their, and I'm pronouncing that non-Brazilian, one of their Brazilian, one of their brothers has 10 world championships.
Yeah, 10 world championships in 3 weight classes.
Which
means he's just cutting weight, adding weight, doesn't matter. I'll kick your ass.
And this is where we see this family start to explode because this is like the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So this is where all the no holds barred shit is really taking hold. So this is where we get into UFC.
Exactly, because this is like the time period where it's finally starting.
So
early 90s, Ryan Gracie.
That's who I was trying to
with promoter Al Davey.
Royan.
All right. Come on, Brazil. Get your shit together. Created an
Us Americans.
I know.
Come on, Brazil. Like, we're the ones fucking it up.
Yeah. Hey, country with your beautiful women and nice beaches and a wonderful weather. Stop doing what you're doing.
So this is what I found so interesting is Royan wants to have a tourney. This is what I read.
Yeah.
To
8-man tourney.
To display the Gracie's dominance.
Exactly.
So he wants a bunch of other fighters to show up, and literally this is what he said. He was just like, I want to display my brother kicking people's asses.
Hey,
and
do you want to come to this fight where my family member's in and he's just going to beat the shit out of you? Like, what kind of invitation is that?
It's fucking genius because he got...
Oh, he did. He got all these people, yeah.
But what I found so interesting, and I think I even heard this on the Joe Rogan podcast, but don't tell people I listened to it. But it was fucking, he was just like, they originally were going to go with one of the brothers. His name is Hickson.
Yeah.
But they decided that he was too, because he was obviously the best one in their family, but he was too fucking big and dominant. Okay, so they decided to go with Hoyce, who was, I think, 170 pounds. And I think Hickson was 225, all muscle.
Which is just like a heavyweight boxer at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they wanted was they wanted Hoyce to go out there as this smaller guy and beat these supposedly bigger guys. And what it did was create this mystique that UFC and MMA really kind of pushes, is like any style could beat any style kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? Anything goes.
Anything goes. And that's why, and I'll get into why they kind of pushed the Gracies out, and that's why Hoyce that's why they laid the roadwork for what MMA is. So I think
November 22nd, 1993, champion. Won 2 more tournaments after that.
And then, well, this is what I thought was interesting was they decided to not let Hickson do in the UFC, so he went and did this one in Japan. And I watched the highlights for it, and he dominates these guys so much, it doesn't look like he takes a deep breath. And
Could you imagine if Crow Cop, they got their hands on him? He'd be the Terminator.
Well, that's the thing is nobody knew what to do with these guys. As soon as they got their hands on you, it was fucking over. And this is what I want to get into is Royce Gracie had some of the most epic battles against Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
And what it was at that moment was Royce Gracie's and the just like Brazilian natural technique against Ken Shamrock and the industrialized steroid wrestler.
Yeah.
And it just like made for the perfect, it was almost like a WWF fucking match.
No, man, it's Clash of Styles.
Clash of Styles. And that's why it was so much fun back then. And then once they put on time limits, it really killed what the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu really dominated, because they would just, and it was fucking boring. They would sit on you for like 20 minutes. And
because you couldn't get out. They'd turn you into a goddamn pretzel.
Exactly. And they would literally just be holding you for 20 minutes and then like 30 seconds would go by and they'd snap a headbutt on you. It's, if you go back and watch those early UFCs, they're boring, but they're all technique.
Oh, it is, because that's all they had, but it's all they had because they had honed it and they're going, who the hell's going to beat me?
And nobody really could.
And now you have their style of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu
folded in.
Staple.
Yeah.
Where even if that's not like your first skill that you learn, you have to know how to beat it or at least know how to use it.
Exactly. It's in everybody's repertoire, even if it's not your thing.
Yeah, like you have to have that in your bag of tricks because there's probably the fighter that you're fighting who knows some of it, you know?
And that's how popular it is. And this is what I found so interesting is somebody said this, they were just like, 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, there were no other BJJ like schools. It was all Gracie. They were the only guys. So they had students that weren't Gracies, but like, if you were in jiu-jitsu, you were just like
jiu-jitsu school.
You were just like, oh, you learned from that Gracie, I learned from this Gracie. You know what I mean? Like that's how they were it.
How can you export soccer, luscious asses, and this? That's just what I'm wondering.
Well, that's why I love fucking Brazil so much, because they take everything and make it their own. How are you going to make the ass your own thing?
It's like America Junior.
It's like America.
If not better and sexier.
Oh, God, so much sexier.
But no, they have the, what I had read through their schools, the Gracie Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost... It's cult-like almost as I was reading through it.
But it's extremely iconic.
It's iconic, and it's because I'm very spurgy when it comes to self-discipline. I'm reading it. It's like, oh, this is something I could actually buy into.
Yep.
You know?
Definitely.
You got your triangle of mind, body, and spirit, and that is what their entire schools are kind of based around as far as the sport. And I would figure... in an individual sport like fighting, no matter whether it's boxing or MMA or anything, you know, in that whole realm, as an individual, that's all you have to you, like internally, those three things. Yeah. So it's like, wow, you just took what everyone thinks and made it a thing, you know?
Well, that was the other thing was even with their training, people were saying it was very MMA centric. So like making that transition was very right there because they had all these foundation.
Yeah, it's much more seamless than I would say an entire standing up sport like boxing or a very ground-based sport like wrestling. Yeah. So you're kind of combining all these different things, which leads back to the Maeda thing back in 1916 where it's like, oh, we've never seen this shit before. Holy cow.
Yeah. But I love it because they see this new thing and they don't necessarily do it exactly like that. You know?
Yeah, they put their own spin on it and they're like, let's build a goddamn empire. I found that truly fascinating when I was researching it.
And you just see all kinds of absolutely great MMA fighters come out of Brazil.
Not only out of Brazil, just out of the family in general.
Yeah.
Like, what was it I had read? Kron Gracie won the ADCC Submission Wrestling World Championship in 23, and then the Euros in 2009.
Yeah.
Clark Gracie won the Pan American Championship in 23, and then Kyra Gracie won the ADCC Submission Wrestling World Championship in the women's in 2005, 2007, 2011, and then the World Jiu Jitsu Championship 4 times.
Yeah.
Like, these people are genetically engineered to obsess themselves over the sport and showcase it to the world.
Well, it's like you see a family and they're just like, well, my whole family's plumbers. And you're just like, plumbers, all right. And then you go and you see the Gracies are just like, well, it's hard to explain. We're like snakes, I guess. And you're just like, snakes? You're just like, well, I don't know. Come here. Let me show you.
Yeah,
you're just like, oh, God.
No, they're like, if they were American, they'd be like, we major in taking names and kicking ass. What does that mean? You'll see.
You'll see. And you know what? It's not in that order, just so you know. Hey, everybody. This is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.